Fifth dar, as they say in my part of the world, and welcome from me, Martin Smith, aka Cornish Grandad, to my YouTube channel. I trust you are well and are interested in adding more to our Blender Basics scene. Now, you can't have a still life without fruit. Look at Paul Cézanne's Picture and Fruit. Today we're going to add some colour and texture to our scene by filling our silver fruit bowl with lemons, oranges and apples. But to quote Stephen Hawking, one of the basic rules of the universe is nothing is perfect. Perfection simply doesn't exist. So we'll use sculpting to make our fruit look slightly less than perfect, which will improve the image no end. So first we'll create a lemon. I'll introduce you to the very useful Voronoi Texture. Then we'll sculpt our fruit. And then we'll use a sphere to create an apple. And we'll add an interesting apple texture with multiple colours. Okay, this is the scene as we've left it. I have already dragged in an image of a lemon. Let's select that. We'll hide everything else with the slash key. We'll frame select that. We'll go to front view. And I've already scaled this so that it's actually a 13mm radius. Got a ruler out and measured it. So I assume you're happy to set that up. So we're going to do exactly the same as we did when we did our jug. We are going to create a circle. We probably don't need 32 faces. That's obviously be a lot of detail we don't need. 13mm radius, fill it with nothing, and we'll rotate it on the y-axis. So there you can just see our circle. In edit mode, we're going to extrude this just on the x-axis. Extrude it just on the x-axis. Scale it in slightly with shift enabled. Extrude again on the x-axis, and so on. I will leave you to do that while we fast forward through this piece. Okay, that's our basic lemon shape. Just move our picture a bit out of the way, because I want to see that in a minute. There's our lemon. I haven't bothered to detail the end here. We could, but I don't think it's important. What I do want to do is make sure I've got no extra vertices at the end. You remember you might have multiple vertices, so I'm going to do M for merge by distance. That's got rid of 15 vertices, and the same at this end. Select those. M, merge by distances, 15 vertices gone. So we've got a basic lemon shape. We can clearly shade smooth this. We can add a subdivision modifier, look even smoother, and that's our basic lemon shape done. So here we have our absolutely perfect lemon. So what we're going to use is we're going to use a sculpting tool to add a bit of distortion to this. But rather than work on the lemon, I would like to work on a sphere first. So I'm going to temporarily hide this. Let's give it a name first, lemon. Temporarily hide it, and we're just going to add a sphere to play with. So let's create a mesh, a UV sphere. We'll have it 16 segments by 8 by 30 millimeters. That'll do fine. There's a sphere. We go to our sculpting workspace, as we said. I'll hide everything bar that, which I can't see. There we go. Sorry. And what we need to do is, down the left-hand side, we've got loads of sculpting brushes we can play with. We're going to leave it at the drawer. We have a radius that's going to work on, which is set up here, which we can drag up and down, and a strength, which is how much movement up and down is going to be, and whether it's going to be adding or taking away from the mesh. The alternative way to change in the strength and radius is right-click, which is the way I prefer to do it. And if we hold the mouse button and drag across, we don't seem to be having much happening. A little bit of movement there, but not a lot. If you look at our wireframe view, it's because there isn't enough mesh to work on. So it's trying to draw on big empty spaces. So the way around it is we could add some more mesh detail. We could do subsurface modify and apply that. That gives us a lot of detail where we don't need it, because we're only going to put a bit of amendment to this texture. The alternative is you should have an option up here. It says Dynotopo, dynamic topology, so active movement of shape. Click that box. Gives us a warning message, which is fine. We're okay with that. And now, as we draw across it, look, immediately you see a lot more topology is instantly added. Okay, so with that one click, I've added all this extra detail and I've raised this up slightly. And if I move it across here, I'm getting more detail. If I wish to, say, take some of this away, I could reduce my radius, for example. I could reduce my strength. And I could do the minus button up here, but actually a lot easier is the control button, which is basically reverses that option up there. So that's taking a bit away. So we can add some random shape over here. We can take the radius down, we can take the strength down, and we can use control and do a bit negative. Don't overdo it. Go back to the solid shape and you can see you getting a bit of detail appearing there. So having done that, let's try that with our lemon. So we go back to the viewport, we can delete that object, we don't want to see it. We can get everything else back into our scene. My lemon is currently hidden, so let's unhide that. And Blender has crashed. So unfortunately Blender had crashed on me. That doesn't matter, we're in an appropriate point. So we just got our lemon back. We'll go into our sculpting mode. We'll just focus on the lemon. That was a / key. And we are turn Dynotopology on. Ignore the warning messages because we know what we're doing. Take the strength down quite a bit, otherwise it's going to be too much detail on our lemon. We'll take the radius up a bit to start with. We can add some moving around totally randomly. Don't make sure it's not detailed. Then we can take this strength down even more. We can take the radius down more. We can use control to add a bit of negative bump, negative texture I should say. And you can also use the shift button. That's the impact of what we've done. Done lots of little changes all over, so it's a bit rough and bumpy, which is kind of what we want. And now we can return to our 3D viewport. There we go, there's our lemon. So at this point, we would like to add some colour to this. Now obviously a basic colour is going to be something yellowish. Give it a name. Citrus lemon, because I might use the same kind of structure later on. We'll give it a surface colour and we'll give it a yellow to start with. Something nice and bright and lemony. It's a bit too green. Something like that. Okay, now in a real life lemon, as you can see, we've got lots of little bumps and textures all over the place. And we're going to use the Voronoi texture to create that. And I think it's worthwhile just having a quick background of what the Voronoi texture is and does. So let's have a quick look at the really useful Voronoi texture. Considering a plane dotted with seeds, the seeds grow into trees. The roots of the trees spread out until they touch the roots of another seed, another tree. The region encompassed by each tree is a Voronoi cell. The pattern of trees on the savanna can be represented by a Euclidean cell, as in the picture. Each cell starts as a random seed, and then the cell boundary is determined where the distance between the seeds is equidistant. Now imagine which street blocks are served by, closest to, coffee houses in Manhattan. We now have the blockier Manhattan interpretation of the cells around the seeds. Note how these cells are more angular than the Euclidean ones. They use a slightly different formula to calculate the boundaries. The trees on the savanna and the Manhattan coffee house examples are both two-dimensional. A honeycomb would be an analogue for three-dimensional Voronoi, as it also has depth. I can't even imagine a 4D one, but perhaps you can. On the Voronoi node, we can either select the standard cells, F1, i.e. closest to the seed, the smoothed F1, or cells to the second closest seed, which is called F2, which gives a more chaotic pattern. Or we can emphasize the boundary to the edge using the distance to edge option. There is even a sphere option to create blob-like patterns, like a lava lamp. All these options have their use with some trial and error. The size of the cells and the randomness is clearly self-explanatory. We are now ready to use our Voronoi texture to create a more realistic looking lemon. So let's go to our shader editor. I'll add a Voronoi texture, add texture Voronoi, drop the color into the base color. Can't actually see our image up here, can we? So let's hide everything else. No, we were on the wrong one. We were on our circle, which I thought I'd renamed as lemon, but let's rename it. I think it might be when it crashed. Okay, so that's the Voronoi texture we saw earlier. We need to get this scale right up. I'm guessing something like that. That would be a good starting point. And now we need to drop in a color ramp. Remember, I've got one already set on my quick favorites. You might not, in which case you have to go to add. So let's create a yellow color. It's a nice light yellow. And on the other one, we'll create another yellow color. We can use the pipette to pick up that color if we like. But then we'll probably want to make it a little bit richer or darker. So we've got a two-tone color effect. Now remember, I can drag these backwards and forwards to change these. I think probably something like that. I think probably a bit more scale, even more scale on this thing to get it to look that right. Not bad. Now, if we connect that into the distance into the base color, we can use that perhaps to drive the roughness. So we'll put that into the roughness, we'll put that back into there. Whoops. I don't like this disappearing behind here, so we could, not a cut, silly. We could grab that and move that down, looks a bit neater. And we could probably use this distance to drive the sheen as well. That doesn't look shiny enough to me, so perhaps we could put a multiplier in here. Let's add a maths node into there, change it to multiply. We'll give it a factor of what, 2, something like that. It's beginning to look that. I still think that scale's too small. it in there. Now we need to add some bump, so I've got a bump added to my quick favourites as well, normal into normal, and we could probably use this distance to drive the height. It's far too rough, so we need to take this roughness down. And we've got something looking pretty good, like a lemon. I'm quite happy with that. So returning back to a 3D viewport, let's bring everything else back. Let's grab our lemon and temporarily put it up here somewhere. We can sort it out later exactly where we're going to put it in this bowl, but up there somewhere. And we can hide this one. If you'd like to see the bonus video on creating an apple with a procedural texture, then please click the link.